In this lesson, you'll be deploying the chat application live to a production server. Now, this is going to allow anyone with an internet connection to open up the app in the browser and start chatting with others. Now, we've already gone through this deployment process twice in the course, once for the weather web application and a second time for the Task Manager API. Doing it this third time is going to be a challenge for you to make sure you actually know how to deploy your Node.js apps. So let's go ahead and get to it by heading over to chat.js. Right here up top, what I'm going to do is paste in the challenge comments outlining what I'd like you to do. So once again, the big picture goal is to deploy the chat application. Step 1 is going to be to set up get in the chat app project and also commit your files. Now we want to commit every single file in the chat app project except for the contents of the node modules folder. So you're going to want to set up the ignore file like we've done before. Next up, once you have that commit in place, you're going to create a Git repository and then push your code up to that repository. And you'll also create a Heroku application and push the code up to that as well. Now, our code is already looking for process.env.port over here in index.js. So there's actually no need to change any of our code to get this done. Now, once you have the code deployed to Heroku, the last thing you want to do is open up the live app and test your work. Try to join a chat room with a few different browser windows, or share the URL with a friend and have them try to join, and make sure you can actually chat on the production version of the app. All right, take some time to knock that out, and when you're done, come back and click play. How'd that go? Let's go ahead and get to it by first shutting down the dev server from the terminal. We're going to run git init to initialize the chat app folder as a Git repository. Now, from there, we do want to set up our git ignore file to ignore the node modules folder. So in the chat app directory, you needed to create a new file, .git ignore. Right here, the only thing we're going to ignore is the node modules folder. Perfect. Everything else is going to be committed, including everything in the public and source directories. Now that we have the git ignore file created, we can go ahead and use git add dot to add all files to the staging area, and we can run git status just to make sure things look correct. Here, if I scroll up through the list of things I'm about to add, I have my 3 files in the root of the project. Then I have a few different ones in public, followed by a few others in the source directory. That all looks great. So I can go ahead and move on to the final part of step 1, which is to actually commit those files. Git commit with the M flag for my message, and init commit will be a good start here. Now that we have the commit in place, we want to create a GitHub repository and push our code up. That's going to allow us to back up our code, collaborate with others, track issues, and more. So to do that, we're going to head over to the browser and go over to github.com. From here, what we want to do is create a new GitHub repository. So in the top right, that is new repository. Here we can create this as a public or private repo, and we just need to provide a name. I could use something like Node v3 chat app as an example. Then I'll go ahead and actually create it. And like we've done before, of the options we have available, it is this second option that we want to take. We have an existing repository and we want to push our code up. So I'll run this line to set up the remote correctly. Then I'll run this line to actually push that code up for the very first time. Once that's done, we should be able to refresh the website and see our code showing up. Right here, I give things a refresh, and what do we have? We have our project available, which is great. Now, the next thing we needed to do was also get our project up on Heroku so people can actually use the application. To do that, if you remember, what you need to do is run Heroku create from the terminal. Now, remember, you can also choose to provide a name. Otherwise, a name will be randomly generated for you. I'm going to use Mead Node v3 chat app for mine. Now I can go ahead and actually create that Heroku application, and from there, what I'm going to do is push it up to the new remote that's been added. That is git push Heroku master. Now this is going to take all of our code, it's going to get it up on the Heroku servers, and Heroku is going to attempt to install those npm modules and actually start up the application. Now in package.json, we already have our start script, so all of that should go pretty well. And in a few moments, I should be given the URL I can visit in the browser. Right here, I can see that it is launching our app, and I have my URL right here. I can alt-click that, or I can copy it to the clipboard and head over to the browser. And all we're going to do is move on to step 4. I want to visit it and make sure I can actually chat. So right here, I visit the URL, and what do I get? I get my join page, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and open up the production URL in another window as well. Right here, we have it open in both. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to join. So I will join over here as Jake to the room. Let's go ahead and join a room like Philly. Then in this window, I'm going to have someone else. Let's go ahead and have Jess join that same room. And right here, I can see that both do have the names showing up, and I should be able to share data. So I could say, hey, and that shows up for both windows, and I should also be able to share my location. Now, yes, I do have to allow that, but once I confirm, after a few seconds, I should see the location being shared, and it is. Over here, Jake got the location that Jess shared. I can click on the link and it brings me over to Google Maps once again with my location. So now that we have this in place, we have our chat application deployed to Heroku. Anyone with the URL can go ahead and visit the chat application to actually use it. Now over inside of chat.js, what I'm going to do is remove those challenge comments, save the file, and that's where we're going to stop for this one. That is it for the end of this video, and that's also it for the end of this section. In this section, you learned how to create a brand new type of application, a real-time application with WebSockets and Socket.io. This allowed us to set up an application with real-time bidirectional communication where the client can send information to the server and the server can send information to the client over this persistent connection. All right, that's it for this one. I'll see you in the next lesson.